part of me, yeah. I said, yeah, if you wanna bring me down, just go ahead, 'cause I'm not sure there's a better part of me. I said, yeah, if you wanna leave me now, just think it over, 'cause I don't wanna make the same mistakes. No, I don't wanna make the same mistakes.
Sharing music.
Going down, the battle cruisers and Vikings coming forward. Seeker missiles going. Oh, the Vikings!
No.
Oh my goodness, that was insane. I don't even know what to think about that.
Huge.
Welcome everybody to day number 3 of ISTL season number 3. This is going to be our Sunday match today. We've got two different matchups with 4 different teams playing today. First up, we've got Team Multitude Gaming going up against Team ZeeZ. I am Vindicare, and with me today is Ajax. How are you doing today, Ajax?
Doing all right. Feeling pretty good. Ready for some StarCraft.
Ready for some StarCraft, indeed. If you guys don't know, Ajax and I are the casting brother duo. We've actually been doing a lot of things not related to StarCraft lately. We've been playing a lot of Guild Wars, a lot of other sorts of things like that. And it's always funny. We always end up coming back to StarCraft, regardless of anything else that we might be doing. StarCraft's that game we just can't quit.
It is. I mean, it's like a bad girlfriend, you know. She just keeps on beating you down on that endless ladder, and then you come back to her because you can't get enough of it.
I know, right? Like StarCraft is, it's just a unique experience, and you can't find anything like it anywhere on the internet. So I'm going to introduce our two teams today. We've got Team MxG, otherwise known as Multitude Gaming. I wasn't able to find too much on them. They have a Team Liquid, a Liquipedia page on them. They've got a modest size roster. Only one Terran. Their one Terran player they're actually starting with is the only Terran they actually have on their team. And then we've got ZeeZ. Now, ZeeZ is apparently a relatively new team. They have a lot of enthusiastic fans that have been bumping our thread on Team Liquid constantly, just like, you know, trying, like, a lot of people like cheering for them. They've got a pretty well balanced roster. They've got a lot of Terrans in it, so it's weird because we got like one team with like only one Terran, and then the other team with a ton of Terrans and only one Protoss player, 2 Protoss players. So pretty different teams going up today, and this should be an interesting match.
It should be. I remember last week we had a lot of interesting matches, or the last time you guys casted with Buddha. A lot of Protoss that time. I wonder if we're going to see a lot of different strats like we saw, but for the Terran side, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the thing is, like, we had so many different Protoss players last time that the games they almost got a little bit predictable. But today, because the lineups for both teams are just so balanced, it's gonna be an interesting thing to see. We're gonna have to spend a lot of time trying to discuss like what matchup choices and what player choices we're gonna be seeing for each player. But the countdown has started. We are getting into the very first game. It is going to be a Terran versus Zerg on the map WCS Cloud Kingdom, like we always start with in the ISTL. Cloud Kingdom is always that very first map.
And it's a good matchup on this map, Terran versus Zerg. A very standard play on this map usually. I don't think we're going to see any cheese, so I think we should be prepared for a good game.
Yeah, Cloud Kingdom has been producing a lot of good games for the ISTL this season. I'm actually like becoming more and more of a fan every single time that I see this map. So we have our intros to give out. We have our Blues Terran player spawning down here in the bottom left position of the map WCS Cloud Kingdom. He is playing for Team Multitude Gaming. Their only Terran player today. He is Juro.
You want to go ahead and do the other one as well?
I could do the other one too, Ajax, if you don't feel like it. We have our Red Zerg player spawning up here in the top right position. He is playing for Team ZeeZ, and he is STS Jowj.
I believe it's Jowj.
Jowj.
We can clarify that later, but good name. Stands out.
Yeah, it definitely does stand out a little bit. No clan tag on either of these guys, though, so it's actually kind of fortunate that we're actually not getting their clan names confused. I remember, like, last season that would happen all the time where I would forget, like, which player was playing for which team because, like, they didn't have their clan tags up in front of them, but gotten a little bit better about that this season. We've been doing a lot of homework in the ISTL, just trying to make sure that mistakes like that don't actually happen. We should be seeing a 15 hatch coming up from our Zerg player so far. He has stopped, he's got 2 additional drones in production, and he hasn't dropped his pool or any sort of gas yet. So we should be seeing a 15 hatch coming up for Jowj. And we should be seeing a 1-rack CC, it looks like, for the looks of things, for Juro. A little surprised that he's not actually going for a CC first.
Well, he is taking his gas right now, so we could see some early Hellion play. But a lot of people have been afraid of that Roach Baneling all-in, and especially on a map like this where it's a lot harder to defend your ramp because they can just walk in, get the wide choke. A lot of Terrans are being really passive on this map.
Yeah, he is taking his gas though, and you mentioned that he might be going for some earlier Hellion play. That's kind of fallen out of favor just a little bit with the after the Queen patch came in. You almost saw nothing but 1-racks command centers into a little bit of a later Hellion build, and we've been seeing a lot of Cloak Banshee play like mixed in there also at the high levels. So I would actually be very surprised if this is actually going to be a very, very early Hellion play. It could be something like an earlier upgrade timing, or even possibly a very, very early Banshee play.
Well, it does look like he's dropping down the CC right now, so it just looks like he wanted that gas maybe for an earlier factory and reactor at the same time. So I think you were absolutely right about going that faster CC. He just wants to make sure that he has those Hellions out for early map control.
Yeah, those Hellions are still such an important unit for Terran in the Terran versus Zerg matchup. They allow you to just take control of watchtowers, spot for Overlord placements, and if there is going to be some sort of big push coming in the earlier mid game, those Hellions do allow you to spot it so much earlier. And the presence of them also makes it so that the Zerg is a little afraid to leave his base because, I mean, you get Hellions in your base, you can lose a ton of drones in a hurry.
Well, I think the major reason for the earlier Hellions is just to prevent the initial creep spread. We see a lot of Zerg getting those 2, 3, and then even jumping up to like 4, 5, 6 queens, and then the creep spread goes out of control. If you can prevent the initial creep spread, you're better off as Terran in general. I mean, it's so scary when you're Terran and you just see the map gooped with all this purple, and you're just like, I don't want to step in that.
That's icky. That's icky, Ajax. I don't want to get like a creep all over my boots. We do have a third hatchery going up for Jowj. He has taken his 1 Yeah, it has taken one gas down here at his natural expansion. The SCV for our Terran player did actually manage to scout that. We do have a starport now in production. That those Hellions, those first couple of Hellions, are actually out on the field right now. So this will be that Hellion Banshee play that we've been seeing a lot of lately in the GSL and MLGs, all sorts of different pro tournaments. This seems to be the new opening of choice for Terran players, especially following that one rack CC. We actually had Wolf comment the other day in the GSTL that we almost never see any Banshee builds without Cloak. So I am wondering if Juro is actually going to be mixing in Cloak with those Banshees, or if this is actually going to be an uncloaked Banshee build.
Well, you know, he's still sitting on that one gas, so I don't think he's going to be going for that Cloak. I still think it's just to, you know, help put pressure. He does have these 4 Hellions over at the third, just being a little annoying, making sure that the Queen can't go back to larva injecting because they need to be walling off that natural, which is actually doing some economical damage. I'm actually surprised Jowj hasn't put down any creep tumors at all yet. He does have the energy for on the 3 Queens. He's just saving the energy for some reason.
Yeah, these Hellions, their damage versus buildings is not very high, but these Hellions have been sitting here beating on this hatchery for quite a bit. They've already killed 1 larva off. We'll probably get a second one in just a bit, but they've already reduced that hatchery down to 50% health. That Banshee's going to be coming up in just a moment, and with the Banshee DPS mixed in, this hatchery's going to start to be in trouble in just a little bit. Zergling Speed did just finish, but there are now, what is that, 6, 7, 8 Hellions out on the field? That is a lot of Hellions can actually go toe-to-toe with those Queens right away, and 1 Queen actually does go down. Here comes the Banshee. The Banshee DPS is much higher than even just this group of Hellions, and now 2 Queens have gone down, and this hatchery is in some big trouble.
Yeah, it looks like he's definitely going to get the hatchery, which is very bad for Jowj. I don't think Jowj was planning on losing that at all, and actually being really, really overreacting to the Banshee. He's putting down, it's 4 Spore Crawlers, and I don't think he needs to get it all. Meanwhile, Juro just in the back, just macroing up like a boss, doing very well, putting down his 3rd command center, and just preparing for the later game.
I mean, just the unit count right now kind of says a lot about what's going on in this game. We've got 9 Hellions and 2 Banshees out in the field. The only combat units for our Zerg player besides those Queens are 4 Zerglings. The worker count for the both players is actually really, really even. 36 SCVs to 43 drones. Those 3 mules do, of course, account for their fair share of SCVs also. We have a 3rd command center now going down for Juro. And now our Zerg player, if he really wants to get back and like make up for that economic loss that he suffered, he really needs to prevent the landing of that 3rd command center. He can't afford to let his opponent get up to 3 bases when he lost his 3rd hatchery that early on.
Well, the problem with this now is that Juro has so many Hellions to the point where Zerglings are useless. He needs to make roaches. And if he makes roaches to be aggressive, the Banshees are just going to take care of them all. And then that's such a huge investment.
What do you think about this, though, Ajax? We have a Spire now in production, as well as 2 additional hatcheries, Macro Hatch, and he is trying to reestablish that 3rd base, but it does look like our Zerg player wants to go up to Mutalisk following this.
Well, I think Jowj is now seeing that this is a very popular style that's coming out, and you know, it builds into mech very nicely, and I think that's where his opponents is going. I think that's what he's thinking right now. Is like, okay, he's got a lot of Hellions out. I didn't really kill a lot of them, so they're still useful. I think he could be switching into mech very easily right now. I did see an Overseer come into his base, but I'm not sure if it got enough vision. It might have seen a few Marines out, so he does have a decent idea of what his opponent's doing. But I think in total, he's just doing that to make sure that he can kill the Hellions off and regain map control.
But he isn't going mech, though, Ajax. Juro is making a very standard switch into Tank Marine from here. Stim's already done. Siege mode's going to be done in just a moment. There is no armory out on the field, but that's a simple matter of spending 100 gas for that armory. And once those stores come out on the field, these Mutalisks are going to have a very difficult time doing a lot of damage. But we actually have a lot of Zerglings that just messed with these Hellions really badly here at the 3rd base. It looked like Juro just kind of wanted to donate this supply. He gave away about 10 Hellions just for 1 Spore Crawler. I don't think that was a mistake. I think that was just an intentional giveaway to free up some supply, but I don't actually know if he should have been doing that. Those Hellions, like you said before, were still very, very useful. Yeah,
the Zerglings have control. Nothing to contest them except for Marines. Now that the Mutalisks are out, they're going to clean up these Banshees really easily. and now the Terran has to worry about Mutalisk.
Yeah.
And you're going to see a lot of turrets going down soon.
Yeah, the map control that was so rock solid for Juro just a second ago, seemingly evaporating in just mere moments. These Mutalisks are going to get one siege tank kill, probably two. They are definitely going to get two siege tank kills, and these Mutalisks that I thought were going to do nothing really, the absence of those Hellions not really being able to see the transition, it's really allowing this Zergling Mutalisk composition to do a lot more than I thought it was originally going to, but we do now have that armory in production. The Marines already up to 1-0 with combat shields and +1 armor already on the way. Upgraded Marines do so well against Mutalisk Zergling. This one Viking is trying to take on all these Mutalisks by himself, but he will go down. But I think that our Terran player will stabilize in just a moment here. The supplies are actually perfectly even, which is such a rarity in Terran versus Zerg. These Mutalisks are continuing to be effective slightly as a harassment force, and behind this, our Zerg player is making a bunch of drones and is reestablishing that third base economy.
And now this big engagement down at the third. Baneling's connecting on a lot of Marines, a lot of SCV. He's doing good damage, but with the tank positioning, he's just going to be able to turn this Zerg force away.
That was interesting that Juro was flying his command center into those Mutalisks. I think it was almost like he was trying to distract the Mutalisk fire with a command center that he could just repair. That was kind of interesting. We do have a drop going over here at the top position for Juro. He is managing to get a few drone kills as well as some SCVs, but this drop is going to be cleaned up by the large number of Zerglings that are now rotating over to that side of the map. And the upgrades for our Zerg player are actually pretty good. 1-1 are already finished. 2-2 is actually on the way. He has a hive now going down as well as an infestation pit with pathogen glands, so he is stopping this Mutalisk production at 15. He's got 15 Mutalisks out on the field. He's going to be transitioning into an Infestor play from here. We'll probably be seeing, I don't think we'll be seeing Broodlords following this. I think we're going to be seeing an Ultralisk transition out of this.
And I think that's the absolute correct answer. With Marine Tank and Juro's upgrades aren't too bad right now. He could be a little bit further ahead on that +2 armor, but he's doing okay. Again, with his bunker positioning at the third, he should be okay.
The Thor.
Thor pushing away,
yeah.
getting into damage there, dude.
Yeah, I was just about to say that Jowj is actually doing a little bit more damage. He was kind of overextending there just a little bit, but it was working out pretty well for him until that Thor came into the picture. Thors obviously do such a huge amount of splash damage to Mutalisk, and now that Mutalisk count that was at 15 is now down to 8. So more than almost half of the Mutalisks that were on the field just a moment ago are now gone, and no fourth base is actually going down for our Zerg player. We normally see a fourth base at this timing. It is now 16 minutes and 50 seconds in-game time. We have a group of Marines and some siege tanks moving out on the map. That is not enough Zerglings to contest with that large number of Marines, but only one medevac out on the field. So this switch into Infestors is going to be very devastating for Juro. That high Marine count combined with that low medevac count is going to make Fungal Growth such a cost-effective spell in this game.
The question is can he get those out in enough time? He is counterattacking down to the third, which I think is a smart idea. Terran is way out of position right now, so Terran either has to go or retreat back and lose all that time. I'm not sure what Juro's going to do. He's actually going to go for it, so we're going to see a possible base race right now.
Yeah, it's definitely looking like a base trade scenario, Ajax. We have Zerglings now in the natural of Juro. Meanwhile, Juro's main force is going to be assaulting this third base location. It is definitely going to go down. Very high number of Marines, and to be honest, we do have a lot of Banelings being morphed in for our Zerg player, but no Infestors are actually out on the field. The Infestors are way down at the bottom side of the map, and those Infestors being out of position is really going to allow Juro to be as cost-effective with this army as he can be. We have Marines being elevated into the main base. This attack is going to be doing so much damage for our Zerg player. The Zerglings in the natural of our Terran player were already cleaned up, and now we have a situation where these Infestors really need to get the Fungal Growth down on the Marines, but the Infestors are all being target fired by those siege tanks. We really need solid Baneling hits in order for this to work, but Banelings are exploding on the Thor, and it wasn't enough. Not enough Marines actually went down from those Baneling hits, and we still have a very high number of Marines in the main base now for our Zerg player, and there's the GG. Juro takes the game 1-0, putting MxG up 1-0 in this best-of-7 series.
And yeah, that splitting and that positioning from our Terran player was pretty beautiful. He prepared very well for that. He knew exactly what was coming. He scanned over all the Banelings, knew exactly what was coming, and he prepared for it and just dominated it. And
I mean,
it was the upgrade.
he got into that beautiful position down there on the third base low ground, right next to where that cliff that connects to natural. That positioning as Terran, especially in TBT, is such a difficult position to break if you are the defending player. Realistically, the best thing you could do is like not to let your opponent get there. But the base trade scenario that was forced at the end there, it really didn't leave our Zerg player with all that many options. He didn't have his infestors in position. He didn't have a large number of Zerglings that he needed to buffer for the infestors. So really what it came down to was a full 150-plus supply army of Terran versus 7 infestors and some banelings. Like, every single tank shot that landed on that army was absolutely devastating to just the supply effectiveness of that army, and it just wasn't, like, the positioning was just way too good at that point.
Yeah, and it comes down to nerves, really. I feel like our Zerg could have engaged that better. He threw down Infested Terrans a little late, which didn't soak up as much tank damage as he wanted to. But once Terran has you by the neck at that point, they're in your third, they're going into your natural, attacking your main. It is so hard to engage that because you're like, oh, this is my only chance to get back into this game. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. And then a lot of people mess up the engagement and, lose the game because of it.
Though, we were talking about this in-game engagement, but I think the real key to that whole game was the fact that that third hatchery was eliminated so early with just Hellions and a Banshee. That's not something you see all that often out of that opening. I'm not sure if that was just really solid execution out of our Terran player, or if that was just kind of like not an overreaction, like you said earlier, because he had all of his defenses prepped for his natural. Where he wanted to make sure that he kept all the Hellions out of his natural expansion, that he just didn't commit really any solid defense to that third base. Without that early third base economy, especially if you're going to go into like Ling Bling Muta. If you're going to go to Ling Bling Muta, like that's a very mobile force. It can do a lot of damage to your opponent. But against Terrans these days, with the high level of control and mechanics that they have, it's not the most cost-effective unit composition in the world. So you really need a superior economy to your opponent. And he didn't really have that throughout the course of the game. So I think that was really, really it was really kind of a devastating hole for him to climb out of.
And I agree. I feel like if he would have went a lot more queens instead of the spores and reacted a different way, he would have been much better off. With all the creep spread that the queens allow and everything else, queens are just a better utility unit and would have been a better response.
All right, well, that'll do it for our wrap-up of that first game. Again, once again, this is a best-of-7 series. This is our first of 2 best-of-7s today. But Juro is putting Team MxG up 1-0. He is, like I said earlier, the only Terran player on the roster, at least the active roster, for Team MxG, but he's already managed to accomplish his own contribution to his team. But how far can he go? We've had 2 straight series now where one team has opened up with a 2-0 lead over their opponent. But will this series break that cycle? We'll have to find out in just a little bit. We're still waiting on the map and player selection coming in.